Welcome, everyone, to the Beyond Dentistry podcast. I'm Dr. Dan, and today we're here with Dr. Avi, who is the founder of Clear Aligner Advisors. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. So, like with every podcast, the goal of what we do is to try to teach younger dentists, residents, and also dentists all around the world what you can do outside of the operatory, outside of chairside dentistry. So today we have a perfect example of someone who started with chairside dentistry, working at multiple offices, and has transitioned or is currently transitioning out of that into a company that he started called Clear Aligner Advisors. So to get started, why don't we just hear a little bit about your background, kind of where you came from and what your experiences have been up to this point.
Yeah. So basically, I was born in California, grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, did undergrad at UCF, went to NYU for dental school, and then did not do residency. I felt like whatever they taught us in dental school, I was pretty good on. And I was like, let's get out into the real world. So I went straight to practice, and then I was at an associate. I was an associate, and I had a lot of jobs. I had a lot of associateships in the beginning of my career. I had 8 total in the first 2 years, and we can dive into this later. Otherwise, this will get really long. But had a bunch of associateships. Always tried to learn in each experience, and then then you fast forward. I was at a place 2 years out of dental school where I was starting to just burn out. I was starting to get bored of dentistry. I was starting to feel like the reality that I was experiencing wasn't what I had envisioned. And I just felt like there had to be more to this field. So the pandemic also conveniently hit. And so that is when I was like, cool, I'm going to just learn. I'm going to learn as much as I can. So I took an implant course. And then I was already certified for Invisalign. So I started just kind of diving into that. And then offices open back up. I go back to practice and I tell the owners like, hey, I'd love to implement aligners. And one of the owners that I worked for said that aligners aren't profitable and said to just stick to referring and just, do root canals because that's the most profitable procedure to do. And I was like, cool. I don't like doing root canals, so I don't know if this is going to work. And then at that point, my wife and I ended up moving down to Austin because we just needed to change the scene. And honestly, there were jobs on Indeed that I was looking at where I had already worked at. So I was like, I think it's time to go. So came down to Austin, worked at a small DSO, and they had the exact opposite take. They were like, hey, we'll support you in anything that you want to do. We will, we'll give you CE stipends, all that kind of stuff. So I was like, great. They had an iTero implant system and I just started running with it. But yeah, I basically started like 50 aligner cases in my first 6 months. I thought that was normal. The reps told me that was not normal because there's just a lot of barriers, I think, for docs to start a new procedure, especially one that we weren't taught in dental school. And so I had a mentor at the time, Dr. Christina Blocker. She's Invisalign faculty. And so she basically was just helping me like set up cases. And anytime I had questions, she was there for me. So that really helped me just kind of have that mentor to lean on. And then as I was doing more cases, I was like, okay, this is awesome. Like dentistry is fun again. I was able to make more money. I had more time because I wasn't having to be tied down to the chair. And then I also felt like I was making an impact on my patients. Like I felt like I was doing more than just fillings. I felt like I was being a part of someone's transformation. And I think pretty much every dentist can say that is like one of the reasons why we got into this profession. So going from a dark place to this like extremely bright, thriving place, I actually wanted to just share this with colleagues. So the dentists that I was working with, I started teaching them how to do cases, how to do aligners. And then I realized like, oh, I think I actually like teaching. So then I talked to the leadership group at the DSO I was like, hey, can we like carve out like a position for me, and I can just teach all the doctors in the company? I thought that was a great idea. Uh,
Yeah, that's awesome.
yeah, they didn't. They said, yeah, they were like, just
Just keep doing what you're
stick
doing.
to the being in the chair. And I was like, I don't really want to do that.
Hmm.
And so that kind of bummed me out. But then my wife, she's got a finance background, so she's just like, hey, why don't you just consult? And then I was like, cool, no idea what consulting is.
Right. What does that even mean?
Right. And so basically I found out it's like you're essentially giving advice and like sharing education. I'm like, cool,
Right.
I'll do that. So then she helped me set up an LLC. And then I was just working with doctors locally. And so one of the docs I worked with, he was opening a practice up, never did any aligner cases. And then he did 25 in his first 2 months. So at that point I had this like curriculum. And then
Hmm.
I was like, cool, like how do I do more of this? How do I get more docs? How do I get the word out? And so at that point, I'm still $500,000 in debt. So I was like, I don't have any money
Hmm.
to like invest in, any type of marketing. So I just took to social
Right.
media because, social media is free. Right. And I just
Hmm.
started sharing value. I started sharing aligner tips, and I started doing reels, and I, created a YouTube channel as well, and just started posting consistently. Then I realized like I started following just like a lot of like social media experts and people that teach you how to grow your account and stuff. And that was like a lot of the info that I was consuming. And then I was just like
Hmm.
taking action on it and applying it to right to dentistry. So yeah, basically was doing that consistently. And then the next mentor in my life showed up, Dr. Vinesh Ganatra. He DM'd me one day and was like, hey, I like what you're doing. He's like, have you ever thought about making a course? And I was just like, no. I was like, I don't think I'm like capable of that. Like, who am I to like have a
Yeah.
course? He's like, no. He's like, if you're already consulting, he's like, you just take that information, package it into a course, and it's going to be more accessible, and way more impactful. And I'm like, okay, cool. So then I learned how to do that. And then basically I used like Instagram as a way to generate leads into the course, right? So exposure
Hmm.
and then getting people into the program. Fast forward to today, and we've got over 100 doctors in the program, and I've grown the Instagram page tremendously. I've also been creating content on YouTube to help also just fill this gap, and this massive gap that I think there aren't enough people filling it, of just education for just basic education for doctors that are out there, everywhere
Yeah.
from while they're in dental school to when they get out, even like 5 years out. So yeah, that's where I'm
That's
at, man.
that's that's great. So for everyone's listening, during this podcast, we're going to be talking about all of these in sections. So we'll start from the beginning.
Mhm.
So it was a point in your life where you felt like you were just becoming complacent with like where you were at, and like you didn't really feel the fulfillment
Mhm.
that you once had, and like that's why you went to dentistry. And I feel like for me, and even some people I talk to, like when you have a bad day, you have a really bad day. Like you
Mm.
question a lot of things. And when you have a good day, it's kind of like, wow, this is like pretty great. But when your bad days exceed your good days, it's not worth it. Right. So then you kind of turned and you made a pretty bold decision to just pick up and move, which I think sometimes like putting yourself in a new environment sometimes stimulates kind of new ideas.
100%.
Whether it's, a new procedure like you were doing or just like taking a right turn on your career path.
Mhm.
And for you, I guess it was kind of both. So would you contribute like your situation right now to like being planned, as in like you you had a feeling you were going away from like clinical dentistry, or do you think you kind of just stumbled on it and this is kind of where you're at and you're happy that you got to this point?
I think that, no, that's a great question. I think for me, it was more like when I first started doing it, it was strictly from a place of like, I just need to like, I want to share this. Right. And
Hmm.
then as I was doing that, I think I started to realize that like the scalability of it. And I'm like, wait a
Hmm.
minute, this could, because one of the biggest things that are tying us to the chair is like finances, right? Like,
Hmm.
period. And so for this, it's like I didn't go into it as like, oh, I'm going to teach a bunch of people, make a bunch of money. It was like, hey, I'm going to teach a bunch of people, provide a lot of value. Their lives are going to change. They're going to
Right.
make a bunch of money, and then also help a bunch of people, and just kind of this whole ecosystem in its own way is just going to evolve. And then I was like, and that's going to then also probably help me, get out of the chair, or alleviate some of those financial stressors to where I don't, I can go down to part time, right? Because
Hmm.
now I practice 2 days a week, and it's not because I've like completely like replaced the income, or I'm making like a crazy amount of money, but it's like there is money coming in where it once wasn't coming in,
Hmm.
and it's allowing me to have these like ideas and this bandwidth to like create and connect with people, and like really start to try to like feel this deeper passion. Like it's almost like the next level to passion, right?
Right.
Like I had the initial passion of going to dental school, and then I had the passion of like wanting to just learn and be a good dentist. And then it was like, cool, I want to do procedures. And there was a
Right.
passion for doing aligners, and then the passion for teaching aligners. And now I'm like, holy crap, like there's so many things wrong with dentistry. Like how can we like congregate and collaborate to like, move the industry forward? And so um yeah, going in, didn't think I was going to get out of the chair, but it's almost like when you follow your passions in life,
Yeah.
like it starts to like everything starts to become more clear and doors open. And yeah, and if you want to get out of the chair, you can. And I think I'm not necessarily there just yet, but I don't know. The universe is kind of putting things in front of me where it's just like, dude, get out of the chair and like just commit.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make it all work.
We're giving you some signs.
Yeah, I'm trying to make it all work. But
Nice.
yeah,
Very cool. So just quick side note, what aligners do you typically work with? And of course, there's like a bunch of them out there, either, ones that you have to go to the dentist to do or ones that are at home.
yeah.
So which ones do you work with?
So definitely, yeah, definitely not a fan of the ones where you don't have to go see the dentist.
Right.
You want to make sure you're there. I use Invisalign personally, so I'm an
Mhm.
associate in the practice where we're at. Everyone's using Invisalign. That's what I was trained on.
Mhm.
But what I've learned is like in the industry, a lot of other brands like Sure Smile, Clear Correct, like
Mhm.
there's competition, right? And it's like I always tell docs, because docs ask me like, oh, what's the best brand? Which one should I use? And it's like, well, you got to look at your practice, right? Because if you are doing CEREC and you're milling crowns in house like that, and you've already got the scanner in the mill for that, I don't know, maybe don't go with Invisalign. Like maybe
Yeah.
go with a system that is compatible with what you already have, right? I
Mhm.
know docs that do both. And then, or it's like some docs are like, oh, I just want simplicity, ease of use, all in one. Cool. Then go with an Itero and go with Invisalign. Like, you know what I mean? There's so many different things. And a lot of things that I'm doing as a GP, teaching other GPs, is like, I'm not doing like the crazy cases. I'm doing the very predictable stuff. So it's like,
Right.
how can, as long as the company can like get me the trays on time, and like there's good customer support, and like the plastic works, um, it's kind of like make it work for your practice.
Right. Right.
But yeah,
You don't want it to be a burden. You just want it to be easy.
correct.
And like the same goes with dentistry. Like a lot of people have different preferences. A lot of dentists have different preferences, and it's kind of like what works better in your hands at the end
Hmm.
of the day. And for you, it seems like this is what, at the end of the day, like maybe if you worked 5 days a week, maybe you would be making a little bit more money. Who knows? But this is what's making you happy at the end of the day. Like it,
Exactly.
I'm
Exactly.
I'm realizing that now with certain patients, it's like you can have the same amount of crowns on two different patients, and one you're like excited to see, and the other one you dread to see.
Yeah.
And it's like you being a doctor have the chance to control that fate. Like you don't have to accept the patient that you don't want to see.
Hmm.
Obviously, that requires a lot of foresight, but with dentistry, like you saw an opportunity, and you were like, the past is the past, and I experienced that, and I don't want that.
Yeah.
Let's see what else I can
And
do.
that's the thing, Dan, is like for me, I saw what life looks like as a practice owner 11 different ways, because I've been an associate in 11 offices,
Mhm.
and I none of their lives looked appealing to me. So it's like, cool. Like, yeah, maybe I could go open my practice and like do it my way, which a lot of dentists say and do, but I also know that's very naive thinking because I know how much work it takes to build a
Right.
business and have all the things ironed out, all the systems. Like, it's a process and it's a commitment. And I think for me, I'm committing to the same thing. It's just virtual, which has its own challenges, right? Like, I'm scripting content, I'm recording,
Mhm.
I'm coming up with ideas, I'm supporting doctors in the program. There's marketing, there's branding. It's like I realized very quickly, like, oh crap, like this is a business, but it's
It's a
exciting.
full-time thing.
It's exciting, you know? And
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's like people think that stuff online is easier, and it's like it's not that it's easier, it still has its challenges. It's just you get more freedom and flexibility, right?
Right.
But freedom and
Yeah.
flexibility doesn't always necessarily mean easy.
Exactly. And I'd argue it's debatably more work than having a job where you leave your house, because it's kind of like a full-time, like 24-hour thing. It's
Hmm.
like you said, you spend time, messaging people and communicating and like networking.
Yeah.
That's a 24-hour a day thing. That's not okay, but between the hours of 9 and 5 I'm going to do it. And on the other end of that is like people work during the day, right?
Hmm.
So a lot of the people who probably you consult probably after hours. I would assume
Yeah.
most of it is, 6, 7 o'clock. That's when they're reaching out. It's not like in the middle of their working day.
Correct. And that's the thing, right? Is it's like, and it also gets sticky because I'm also kind of like I'm a consumer on Instagram.
Right.
So it's like it's tough to like create this mental barrier between, am I working on the business while I'm on Instagram and networking and connecting, or am I scrolling? And it's like I fall prey to scrolling because like there's a level of addiction that's there with social media that we all suffer
Oh
from,
yeah,
you know?
for sure. So I'm gonna kind of ask you one last question just about
Yeah.
you as a provider,
Okay.
right? You being a consumer of your own product, right?
Hmm.
And then we're gonna dive into the business, your model, the systems, and kind of go that route,
Cool.
just so that we can see what it takes to do something like what you're doing.
Hmm.
Um, and there's a lot of opportunity, I think, in the industry. Like every day now with just AI, like it's crazy with
It's
you know
eliminated, in my opinion, it's eliminated the barrier of entry.
yeah.
There's like no excuse now.
Yeah, and the pit is just endless,
Hmm.
and there's always going to be someone that will create something to help more people. That's
100%.
really what it is.
And our industry
Um,
needs it. It needs it. But yeah,
oh
go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah,
Answer this question before we dive down that rabbit hole.
yeah, yeah. So, so you said you did about 50 cases in your first 6 months,
Hmm.
or you sold 50 cases. Um, you know, I was talking to, I did a podcast with Scott Luna in the past, and he had a very similar beginning before he had an injury. But he said, he's in the consulting business of dentistry world, right? You're in the consulting of aligners.
Mm,
But he said within the first 3 years, he was getting like almost 300 patients a month
mm.
new. So, what did you find that you were doing different than everyone else around you when it came to clear aligners?
Honestly, I was not in a fancy practice. It was not new. It was not modern. I'm pretty sure the practice was older than me. And the patients also were all older than me. Like, I was only adults who I was treating. I think the biggest thing is I was focusing on oral health.
Hmm.
Genuinely. I actually focused my conversations around the oral health. I didn't talk about a beautiful smile. I didn't talk about straight, gorgeous teeth. It was all just very factual. Like, hey, your teeth are not in the right place, right? You've got all these problems, and a lot of it can get traced back to the position of your teeth. And when your bite isn't balanced, when your teeth are sitting on top of each other and they're crooked, and you've got plaque buildup, gum inflammation, leads to bone loss. And then that is also, something like, you've been coming in for these deep cleanings, and there's a reason. Like, a lot of this is
Hmm.
because you're not keeping your mouth clean. So I was like, there's a procedure that didn't exist 30 years ago, right? But it exists now, and it works, and we can literally, all you have to do is put plastic on your teeth for like 8 months and brush and floss every time you take them out before you put them in, and like, you're good. Like you will be like exponentially in a healthier position for the long run than you are right now. Um, right. And so it's like when I was just having like variations, like different forms of this conversation, like it was resonating. And I think people at the end of the day value their health, period.
Mm-hmm.
People, and I think a lot of people like to think that people care about aesthetics and looks, and there's a market for it, but every person can buy into and understand the value of health. And so I think that's where my conversation was. And I didn't know at the time, but now I have like frameworks of speaking, but I was literally like walking people through this like emotional buy-in, right? This
Mm-hmm.
journey to get them to then commit to treatment. And like people always complain about compliance and stuff with the liners. And it's like, I didn't know that I was solving for that because this filter that I had in my conversation, my patients were not doing aligners because they wanted to improve the look of their smile. They were doing it because they were like, this is going to make my mouth healthier, which is going to have a lasting impact. So they were more committed to wearing the trays, right? Because it's like if somebody's doing something for like a fad or to just look better,
Mm-hmm.
dude, 3 months, 4 months in, you're not going to wear your aligners as much because you at that point you also care how you look. So you're like, oh, I don't want to wear it at this social event. Like so and so's going to
Right.
judge me, and it's like, and I'm not saying it doesn't work for them. I just think it takes longer for them. So my patients were getting in and out, in 8 months. We maybe do a refinement or two, but they'd be very minimal to just tweak some things at the end, which I also learned like refinement is normal. Now getting like a 20 tray refinement, that's not normal, but having some little tweaks to do at the end is totally normal. But
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, man, I was just doing oral health focused approach, and it works.
And did you find that most of your patients were like female, male, middle age, younger? And then at what point did you, I guess, like get the patient to buy into, I guess, you?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, I don't see you see yourself as someone who promotes oral health for just your entire patient base,
Mm-hmm.
but they see it like I'm paying $5,000 for this. So they have to buy into you and trust you and what you're
Mm-hmm.
saying. And I agree with you 100%. I think that a lot of the problems, like I myself have crowding the lowers, and I can brush and floss that all day, every day. It's still going to bleed every time I go to my dentist. Like
Yeah.
I know that.
Yeah.
So how do you get someone to buy into you?
So I think so demographic wise, it was a mixed bag, but I would say the winner is like the 50-year-old women. Like
Mm,
they are awesome in the sense
yeah.
where they get it, they understand it, they're in a position where they're ready to invest in themselves. There's so many factors, but I found like the 50-year-old women range is like sweet spot. For me at least. And then your next question, it's like I'm honestly like I get them, I guess, to buy into me by like just keeping it real, like trying to be myself. Like I'm not trying to be, this this like different person. Like yeah, I don't even wear like a white coat. I'll wear like a figs like scrub jacket.
Nice.
And it's just like, let's have a conversation about what's going on.
Right.
Like, hey,
You're a normal person
yeah,
just in a dental office.
yeah, like how was your weekend? What'd you
Mhm.
do? People in Austin, people are like going paddleboarding and stuff. It's like,
Oh yeah,
oh,
that's awesome.
where's a good taco? Like, what's your favorite taco spot? Stuff like that. Like, I think that's the thing is like when you go to dental school, it's obviously there's an identity shift. Like you are a doctor at that point when you graduate, and it's like I think we all feel like we have to overcompensate or there's this imposter syndrome, but it's actually crazy because when you are yourself, that is the quickest way to build connections with your patients and just with people. So that's like my tip. And it's like, I'm not like, you don't need to be like so casual to the point where like you wouldn't feel comfortable if someone was talking to you that way. But like, don't feel the need that you have to be like a textbook regurgitating
Yeah,
stuff, right? Just,
right.
just kind of be
Just be
real.
yourself.
Just be yourself.
Yeah. All right. So we're gonna kind of switch gears to now the clear aligner advisor. Um, I want to just know what your goal is with the consumers that you're working with.
Mm-hmm.
So with the docs that you're working with, and then how it's structured. Like if one were to join, what would I go through?
Yeah. So basically, it's a brand agnostic program, right? So I teach basically clear liners for anyone who's looking to start, even if they have no experience with doing it. That's my focus. Um, and then the way it's structured is it is an online course in the sense where there's video modules, there are downloadable resources that help with implementation because that's a huge struggle.
Mm-hmm.
Getting a team to buy in to a procedure is a huge thing because without the team, you're really not going to be able to do it. So
Mm-hmm.
I've created these systems that are all mapped out in the videos, but then also within these resources where it's a combination of like scripts. So every team member will know what to say at what point in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you have like scheduling breakdowns. So it's like, for each different type of ortho appointment, how long it should be, what materials are needed, what should the setups look like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what else do I have in there? Yeah, there's a lot of those things. Basically, I took all the struggles and all the things that I was going through, solved for with myself and my team, and then have now like packaged it up to present it as such. So yeah, I mean, if someone is like looking to join, I also created I created an hour and a half masterclass. So
Mm-hmm.
it's completely free. You would just sign up there, and then you would watch that, and then I basically walk you through kind of everything you need to know from like the how, right, and the what and all that. And basically at the end of that is where I go over in detail the course offerings, and then just present it to anybody that would want to enroll. And once you have that, you'd get access to, like I said, the videos, the downloadable resources, and then I also have like a community on Slack where
Nice.
docs can ask questions and connect with each other. And then I've also got like an additional add-on support program. So it's like it's a smaller group where if doctors want more support from me directly, where I give them like monthly coaching calls to do case reviews, one-on-one support just via text in case they have any questions throughout the day. I also offer that kind of as like an add-on for them. But yeah.
That's great. That's really awesome. And the docs that you've been working with, is it kind of like a lifetime thing, or do you end at a certain point? And then at what point would you say that most of the clients that you work with and the docs that you work with find that they are implementing these like in their office? Because I feel like, I always say, like when you go to an event, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like a conference or a dental convention, whatever it may be, you have like a couple weeks to start implementing what you learned. Otherwise, you forget it.
Yep. Yeah, no, totally. And I solve for that as well, or I'd like to think I solve for
Nice.
it. Basically the core program, like the videos and the downloadables, like you get that forever. It's lifetime.
That's
So
great.
yeah, and it's moduled out so they can always come back and watch it 6 months, 1 year, like, oh, what are we supposed to do in this situation? Like they can just go right to it and watch it. So it solves for that because yeah, I noticed that too, where it's like you go to a course and now all of a sudden everything's on you. And then if you forget, it's like, oh, what
Yeah, and
now?
then you go back and you're like, oh my God, a full book of patients, and I also have to do this at the front.
Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah, and you got to teach everybody. No, it's rough. So
yeah,
I
it's on the back burner.
so that's how I solve for that. And then yeah, I mean some docs see results like literally the next day, but I would
That's
say
all. That's
like
great.
cuz it's I slimmed it all down to where there's no fluff. I'm not selling anybody anything. There's no other, products. I'm not pushing anything else. It's literally just the information. Cause that was something that frustrated me when I would go to courses too. It's like, it's an 8 hour course, but it's actually only 4 hours of content because there's 4 hours of them trying to sell you a bunch of product. And
Right.
it's like, come on, man. Like, I just want to learn how to do this thing and like go home. So,
For
so
real.
yeah, so there's no like, pushing product and whatnot. But yeah, some doctors, I'd say on average, it takes about like a month or two to like kind of feel confident doing it because it's also reps, right? Like you have
Hmm.
to practice how to talk about it with the patients. You have to, and it's like, I mean, it's a pretty foolproof script, but sometimes I always encourage docs like just put their spin on it. Like use this as like a starting point, but then make it your own over time.
Right.
So yeah.
it's funny, just like the similarities between, what I'm doing with pre-dental students and what you're doing with the
It's a great
aligners.
dude. It's a great model, and I think it's super. It just makes a lot
Yeah.
of sense.
Especially now, like with content creation, I guess like when I started mine, what really got to me is like you can provide high quality content to a lot of people in different parts of the world, different parts of the country. And once you put it out there, it's out there. It's not like you have to repeat yourself. I hate repeating myself. I'm like, if I have to say things like more than two times,
Yeah.
I'm like, didn't you hear me the first time? But with content creation, it's like it's there. Like,
So it's funny you say that because when I first started, I was doing this live every month.
yeah,
I was doing it every month. I was delivering the content every month for like 5 months, and then I was just like, I can't do this anymore. Like
yeah,
this is a
it's
lot.
draining.
Because I was just like, I feel like there's a better way. And then that's where my mentor's like, yeah, man. He's like, it was valuable because I was getting feedback. So I was able to
Hmm.
make my content really good based off of the docs that were in the program, and I adjusted it accordingly. But then it got to a point where everyone's like, yeah, this is super helpful. Thank you. And I'm like, okay, I don't know why I have to keep saying it. And then
Yeah.
recorded it, got it like edited professionally. And then now it's like, they can consume it. And to your point, right? It's like, the content that I'm making, it frees you up to make the new content for people to then be right, like to have like a sustainable presence, to then be able to reach more people. And that's like that takes time.
Right. Exactly. The mentor that you're mentioning, did he start his own kind of thing, or he
Yeah.
was just,
So
yeah?
yeah, so he used to own he did three startup practices out in California, and then he ended up selling them, and he went all in on his online dental education platform. It's called Dental Practice Mastery.
Hmm.
And
Oh,
yeah,
I think I've
you've
seen
probably
ads
seen him.
for
He
him.
runs, yeah, so he runs a bunch of ads, and he's just crushing it. And what he does is he'll partner with other dentists, and basically they'll have a course, and then he will help them market it. And
Nice.
then yeah, they basically have like a system set up to where he handles all like the marketing, they deliver on the end of the content, and then that's his business. And he's got it with a bunch of different types of procedures. But yeah, great guy, love him.
That's great. And then now my next thing, do you find, because you're not an orthodontist, like have people like questioned your legitimacy? Um, and of course, like clear aligners different than ortho. I get it,
Yeah.
but um, you're primarily selling to GPs, so
Hmm.
I'm guessing that's all good. But have you gotten any pushback from other members of the community? Because I mean, the reason I'm asking this is because I always get pushback, like always.
For
Like I have a
what?
random person
What do
on
you
my,
get pushback for?
oh, because they're like, you should be providing pre-dental students advice for free. And I say, I do provide pre-dental students advice for free all the time on my Instagram. I post all the time,
Yeah.
and I even respond. I'm constantly responding to people on my Instagram.
Yeah.
Always. I'm really active on it. Um, but I still get pushback because they're like, this should all be free. And I'm like, I have to pay 8 coaches to come on. Their time is not free. Like if you think their time is free, I get it. Like it should be free, but they won't agree with you that their time is free. Like they
Mm.
want to get paid. They're in dental school, they're working. This is kind of like an after thing,
Yeah.
you know? So I get pushback and I spoke to Paul Goodman about this. It's like, you know, you provide something of value to people. And just because we're talking about healthcare, or,
Hmm.
people think that it should be of no cost, like it should be free information. But like you walk into like an Apple store and like cell phones are pretty much like standard these days. And it's like, you don't expect a free iPhone,
Yeah.
right? Like you
Yeah.
don't expect it.
Well,
You have to,
also our education wasn't free.
no,
I think if our education was free, then you can make a case to not charge. But I mean, you don't see dental schools. I mean, dental schools are charging almost $1 million.
I know it's crazy.
Like,
So yeah, so I get pushback all the
I would
time.
just use that
They're
as
like, I got
I would
money to
use
spend
that as
on it.
your retort. Just, and next time somebody tells you it should be free, but yeah, dental school should be free too, but it's not.
It's not, yeah.
End
No,
of
I
story.
get that all the time. I always get questions like, how can I even pay for something like this? Like, I don't even have money to pay for like my Chipotle.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're in the wrong profession
Hmm.
because dental school costs minimum like 500K now just to go to with loans after 30 years.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to be paying it off for your entire life. So maybe this is not for you. But
Agreed.
anyway, let's get back to you. Let's get back to you. There's a little tangent. I told you, rabbit hole.
It's all
But
good. Yeah,
yeah.
no.
So do you get any
No one that has actually, I mean, no one that's enrolled. I think they all trust me and they know that I know what I'm talking about. And if I don't
yeah,
know what I'm talking about, I will go get the right information.
right.
But I've gotten pushback on social media when, if I make like a controversial post, but so I'm asking for it. But no
Yeah,
one's
but
like,
I mean, if you get more than 20,000 views, you're gonna get someone that hates
oh,
it.
I have recently experienced that. Like
Yeah,
that's the kind of realm I'm in, and that's where I started to stop reading the comments because as of late, I mean the page just started to blow up because I've
that's
just
great.
changed up the content, like talking more about like the dentist struggles and just saying the stuff that everyone's thinking but no one is saying. That's the kind of that's what I've been doing lately. Super
Nice.
hyper focused on dentistry, so it's been great, but yeah, like I'll have some people like they're just like, yeah, you're only 5 years out. Actually, funny, I had a conversation with a guy today. He's the head of a dental Facebook group, and I was interested in trying to market or be a sponsor, and he was like, well, what even qualifies you to teach on this stuff? You're only 5 years out. I'm like, yeah. I was like, great question. I was like, I'm 5 years out. I'm an associate, and I had a lot of time at the practice that I worked at to focus on a new procedure. And so I committed to it, and I was like, owners have 20 things going on, so they don't really actually dial in. And I was like, I had
Hmm.
100% effort on learning how can I dominate and implement this procedure. And so I learned everything in a short amount of time. And then I'm also qualified to teach it because I just went through it. Like I
Hmm.
know exactly what people are going through today, as opposed to if I was like doing this for 20 years. Someone that's been, and that's the thing, is like there's a happy medium, and that's why I think like at the end of the day, more information is best. Like I've learned
Hmm.
from multiple successful GPs on how to do aligners, and like I got my spin on it, but the whole thing of connecting with someone like and yours, for example, I'll relate it to you because it's perfect. Like you are not actually the best person to teach undergrad person, right, how to get into dental school. Like you're good, but who's even better than you? Someone who just got into dental school.
Hmm. And just to piggyback off that, that's why I just hired 3 students who are freshmen or first years in
Dude,
dental
that's
school.
amazing because now that is value. They literally know what it looks like today,
Yep.
right? Because think about when, and that's the thing, we've all been there. When we were at the start, think about how much we had to learn and how much we had to do. And that's the thing. Like I seeked out advice from dentists,
Hmm.
my uncle. And he was just like, he's like, it's a different time back then, right? He's like, you
Hmm.
should talk to someone who just got into school. And I did. And that's who I started to get all the information from and how to get in and whatnot. So like, and that's the thing, right? Is like a lot of stuff in dental are a lot of like a lot of the people educating out there, and it's not a knock. I think it's just natural because we all come out into this profession. We're young, we're hungry, we're working, and we're busy working. And then, but when you look up to learn, it's from it's from older people. And this isn't a knock on them. It's just saying that like, just there shouldn't be, there's no age requirement to sharing
Right.
an experience and providing value.
That's the same reason why there's 60-year-olds that still go to concerts and 60-year-olds that read in bed at night. It's like
Yeah.
if you have a young mindset or like you're willing to learn, I should say,
Mm-hmm.
um, you can flow with the times. But
Yeah.
like someone like that who said that to you, like very narrow-minded because
Super narrow minded, dude.
yeah,
Trust me.
like
It like lit me up a little bit. I was like,
yeah,
because I was on the phone with him and
I
I could kind of feel something in my chest, but I kept my cool and I let him,
nice.
I let him talk. He didn't even
Yeah,
really know about like anything about me at that point.
yeah. But
And
like someone like that is not a learner.
nope.
Like they don't if that person was smart or like if anyone's smart, it's like you talk to someone, be a good listener.
Yeah.
Listen to what he has to say. What is he doing? Maybe I can learn something from him. But like being narrow-minded, like it doesn't help anyone.
Yeah. So I
You
want to
know?
expand on that because this
Yeah.
conversation was so fresh and I feel like this would just be good to talk about because
Yeah. Just a
this
little
was,
vent session.
yeah, little vent session.
Let's do that.
Thanks for tuning everyone to the vent session, but I think y'all will like it. So basically, what it was crazy because it's the first time in this journey in the last year and a half where I was met with so much friction and so much judgment and so much questioning in that regard, where it was my fear, right? When you start something new and you have imposter syndrome, you're afraid of these questions. You're afraid
Mm-hmm.
of people asking you that. But the reality is the number of people who are going to do that to you is very little compared to the people who are going to lift you up and support you, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I have met so many people, you're one of them, where I'm met with questions that are genuine curiosity. Hey, what are you working on? How'd you do it? I'm interested. That's super cool.
Mm-hmm.
First time, so basically going off of that, this guy goes and he tells me all these things. He's like, what makes you qualified to do it? Why do you think you can? And then I tell him my price. I told him my price. And then he was just like, that's too much. He's like, you should be charging $500. And I was like, what? And I just let him talk. He's like, you should charge
Mm-hmm.
$500 because you don't have a lot of content. He's like, your hour, like the hour to price ratio is completely off. And then I'm just like confused because I was like, what is this guy talking about? Like, but then I realized this is the old school mind of dentistry. They think that if you have more hours of CE and that's what justifies thing.
Yeah.
No, it's 2023. Nobody has 20 hours to give to something. We all want stuff fast and people are willing to pay a premium for it, right? Like
Right.
in New York, do you take a yellow cab or do you take an Uber?
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
You're paying for the convenience. Ubers are more expensive, but you go take an Uber or you compare it to a Subway. Like
Yeah.
you're going to take the Uber. I mean, maybe you're doing the Subway.
That
I
no,
don't
that
know,
that
but
no, that's a great analogy.
right. So,
Um,
so my thing is like, yeah, there's I've shrunk it down. I've taken all the stuff that you need to know and shrunk it down to 4 hours of content, so that way you can take it and it's all actionable. Like that is a value. So, um,
and just sorry to interject, but the other
you're good.
thing is like the value that you're giving isn't just in your course. It's like the income that you could potentially generate from this new, align,
Correct. Correct.
right? Implementing it, and like everyone can take an Invisalign course, right?
Well, that's what
Like
he
it's
said. He was like, well, why would someone take your course when they can take the Invisalign course for free? And then I was like, first off, it's not free. It's $3,000. Second of all, everyone that takes it says it's just a big marketing ploy because no one actually learns how to do anything.
right.
So I was
You
like,
can offer, they would offer a dog to do Invisalign, let's be real. Like, like as long as someone does it, they'll do it. But I that is a very old way of thinking
mm-hmm,
because today, right, in dental schools, they don't teach you about business, right? So he's saying take Invisalign. Invisalign will show you how to do aligners, but who's going to teach you like how to schedule it in your office, what you need, all that
mm-hmm,
other stuff? They don't teach you that. They don't teach you how to talk to patients. They
nope,
say, here, this is how you you're going to bond it to the bracket, to the tooth. You're going to be all good. They're going to come in with aligners. That's it.
yeah,
But you don't see that there's two different pathways of,
exactly.
sell or giving someone an Invisalign experience.
And that's the thing, right? Is he's like comparing me and my program to these things that all, in my opinion, suck. And so it's like, yeah, these are all problems. This is why more dentists aren't doing aligners, is because they don't know how to do it. There's no basic training around it that's accessible. So then he goes on to say, um, he's like, well, what you should do is you should price it at $500 and then focus on selling it to the masses. He's like, your price point's too high. He's like, it's too high. No one's going to do it. And I'm just like, okay. And then I let him finish his rant on his business advice, if that's what he wants to call it. And I'm like, listen, man, I had a cheap price to start because I had that mindset. I was like, I'm going to charge people $1,000. Charge people $1,000 because I want to help as many people as possible. What happens with the human psyche, especially dentists, is when something is $1,000, there's a perceived value behind that. So if you're going to pay $1,000 for an education program, you're going to think this is, it might be good. I might learn a thing or two. I'll probably sign up for the part 2 that's going to give me more information. But anyways, then I told him I did that, and not that many people enrolled. When I raised the price to $2,500, I got a bunch of enrollments. It's kind of like there's a whole value proposition here that is bigger than just like take a course, know how to do aligners, and it's $8,500. So again, it's the same thing. You're trying to like this whole procedure is $5,000 for patients. It's not just, hey, wear this plastic, it'll make your teeth straight. There's like a whole thing to it. So yeah. Anyways, I told him I had over 100 students in my program, and he was like shocked. He's like, what? He's like, you've got over 100 docs. He's like, that means it's working. And I'm like, yeah. And it's not at a $400 price point either.
Right.
Like, I also wasn't coming to you to ask you, does my product work? I was coming to you for marketing because I know it works and I want to help more people with it. So rant is over, but yes,
Nice.
narrow-minded versus open-minded.
Yes. So you sell to a different type of consumer
Mm-hmm.
than we do. You're selling to someone who can, one, is older and that could foresee exactly what they're going to get out of your course, which is
Mm-hmm.
income, right? You sell 2 cases a year, right? You make the money back right there. What I'm doing is I'm selling to pre-dental students that eventually are going in the opposite direction. They're just taking on more debt, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm trying to do is limit the downside of that, right? Like you could be spending $700,000 on your dental education, or you can get into a less expensive, better school for less money, and you could save yourself $300,000 on tuition over the course of a couple of years.
Okay.
The issue with that is that um, selling that to a lot of students buy in. They're like, I get you, I get it, I have that mindset. A lot of people just they don't see value in that until they realize, oh wow, I didn't get into school at all, or
Mm.
wow, my only option is that new university in California that's charging $700,000, and you have to pay it basically all in cash, and you have to get your own loans, right?
Jeez,
Like,
yeah. So how do you? So then, yeah. So then, how do you guys help those guys?
yeah, so it's difficult to help those people, which is why any student that joins our program, we kind of have a conversation on the phone. We do
Mm.
like a little strategy session. We kind of see where they're at, what they need help with, and ultimately if this would be a good idea. And there have been plenty of cases where we've turned students back,
Yeah,
and we're like,
it's
I
not
don't
going to be
think
a
this is
good
going to
fit.
be a fit, just because at the end of the day, you want someone, and this goes back to our conversation earlier. You want someone that will be happy with whatever you're giving them, right? And if you can foresee, okay, maybe this person has a 2.5 GPA, their parents are calling me saying that they want some magic to get their son or daughter into dental school, but you don't think that at this point it's probably possible, or it might take 5 years, and that student themselves are not motivated. 2 years down the line, and this has happened to me, and I've learned from my mistakes, they ask for money back. And they say,
Yeah,
hey, I haven't used your course. I was in school, I went to a couple of things, but like ultimately I'm changing my career. Those are not easy conversations to have,
mm-hmm.
right? Because ultimately, with credit cards, like the consumer wins basically all the time.
Yeah,
So you try to kind of limit all of that ahead of time. That's what I try to do, at least, is like take motivated students who know they definitely want to go to dental school, and that are in good positions to be successful. That's what we look for. And again, like we're at a high price point as well, right?
yeah,
So we've gotten a lot of backlash from how could you be charging this? And I'm say we offer 4 days a week a student can hop on the computer and there's a coach available to talk to them, right? We offer a DAT class that runs 14 weeks twice a week for 3 hours each. Like if you were to just go and get your own tutor, you're going to be spending the amount of money you're spending, and you get application help, assistance basically whenever, a group chat on Slack where you can talk to other students, like network. And
yeah,
like what we and the biggest thing that I try to emphasize to students is, yeah, this is just your first step. Like we're getting you into dental school, but it doesn't end there. Like that's not your end goal. Like
yeah.
we try to motivate them to be better, to do well in dental school. You still got to get through that. So as much as
Uh,
we try to get them into dental school, it's really something beyond that. So my
well, I like
goal
that
with,
because you're also teaching them and facilitating and fostering this like collaborative community,
oh,
which
exactly,
dentistry needs, and you're going at the root of it. Like
exactly.
you're literally helping people come in and have this mindset. Like, dude, that is sick. That is gonna change the game.
Yeah, so that's the goal, and for a lot of students, they have been doing really well.
Mm-hmm.
They a lot of them are in dental school. We take students from freshman year of college, and a lot of them are in dental school, and we see that they excel. We've had a couple students that have loved what we do so much that they actually work for us now. So that's
There you go.
awesome. Just with
That's how you
students
know
who are
what you're
coming
doing.
in,
That's how you know what you're doing is working.
yeah.
And honestly,
Exactly.
that's a goal of mine too in the future. Is like I would love for these docs. I mean, I've been doing this for a year and a half now, but I would love for some of these docs who are killing it, you know, if there was a way that I could help them out and have them right get into like this teaching position and have there be compensation and like really grow this thing. And
Yeah.
I feel like I'm heading in that direction too, because it sounds like from even just hearing what you're saying, like when you have this model and you're building that community with that support, it's almost like the next step.
Yeah. And like I said, there's, two types of people you can work with. One that will pay you money and resent everything you do and try to nickel and dime you for everything that you like. They'll say, I paid $5,000 for this course, or I paid $8,000 for this course. I feel like I'm not getting anything out of it. Or you
Yeah.
have the student who's like, I know that I see the vision. I know what I'm going to get will help me. It's just a matter of implementing it in my own life.
Yeah.
There's and like I said earlier before, you control your fate. You have the opportunity to work with someone or not work with someone. And especially, I
100%.
think at early stages within a company, you need 5-star reviews. Like everyone needs to like what you do. And if someone is having, a poor experience, you find out why and you try to change it. And
Hmm.
at least with the students that I work with, I tell them, if there's something that you don't see in the program, tell me, because I want to make sure it's something that you want to see.
Do
And
you,
if there's something that you don't like, I want to know. If there's a coach that wasn't necessarily nice to you, I want to know. If
mm,
there's a coach that was never available to you, sometimes, this one instance, I had a student that reached out to a coach for 3 days and didn't get an answer. So I reached out to the coach. Turns out the coach accidentally didn't see it. So
mm,
that everything trumped it right there. So at early stages of any company, any practice, whatever, you have to make sure that everything you're doing is perfect.
yeah.
And that's
But
how
at
you
the
that's how
same
you grow.
time, it's not even that it has to be perfect. I think it just has to be like you need to be willing
Exactly.
to make things better and make it right. And like you said, be inquisitive. But on that, do you find that it's like hard to get feedback, or is it pretty easy for you? Because that is like a struggle for me.
Yeah. So it's hard. We've done a couple different methods.
Mhm.
One being, we offer students different things within the program. One is like we give them a subscription to DAT Bootcamp, um, which is on a side note, but we'll offer them like if you fill this out, like we'll give you an extra month of DAT Bootcamp.
Mm,
Or so we'll create like a Google form. Additionally, I've done like extra coaching hours with me. So you fill this out, like you can get 2 extra coaching hours with me.
nice.
That type of stuff. Again, hard to get feedback. Testimonials are like the biggest thing within this space because I get this all the time. They're like, we just had someone sign up yesterday, and he was like, they, his parents came on the phone. I work with a lot of students who need financial support from parents.
Of course.
The first thing they said, it was funny. I had a lot of the sessions that I do preliminarily are via like Zoom.
Hmm.
So I met him over Zoom. He really enjoyed it. He was like, I need to talk to my parents. I was like, great. So he texted me back. He's like, hey, like my parents are on board. They just want to talk to you. I was like, great. So I called them. I was like, what time works with you? Tell me a time. I was driving back from work for my residency program. And I said, I called him and he was like, oh, like, can we meet on FaceTime? I was like, okay, I'll be home in a couple. I don't want to FaceTime and drive, but I'll be home in like 30 minutes. Let's meet then. Get on Zoom with them. And the first thing he says is like, oh, like, I just wanted to see your face because I wanted to make sure it's not a scam. It's the first thing. And I was like, that's valid.
Hmm.
It humbles me a little at times because you take a step back and you're like, all right, you're selling something online to people you've never met, right?
Yeah.
The old way, and these, pre-dental students' parents are, you walk into the bakery and you buy your groceries there, or
Yeah.
you
Or you
you
go to the
walk into place.
Kaplan, right? You go to the Kaplan study.
That's what you do. You go to
Mhm.
Kaplan and you get a course through them. What is this guy Dan selling, right? So you meet them, you kind of talk to them, and then they buy in. And that's what it really comes down to with the testimonials is, these are real people that are putting their face on camera, that are going on your website, that have done this, right?
Mm.
So the biggest thing that I try to do is get testimonials from every student that gets into dental school. I try to. A lot of them don't want to be on video, so I get that. So we do something called with Trustpilot, but we really try to get testimonials because I feel like I could talk all day, but at the end of the day, if they don't trust what you do and they don't see results, what good is it to them?
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
So getting around some barriers are difficult, but start like I said, starting a business is difficult, especially when people think it should be free. So that's
Preach, man. I hear you.
yeah. But let's end off with one last question, and I kind of ask this to everyone. Um, where do you see yourself taking the clear aligner advisor?
Yeah, I
Let's
think
talk like 5, 10 years from now. Like, where do you see yourself with it?
yeah, my intention with the program is if anybody at any stage in their career is thinking, "Oh, I want to learn how to do aligners," I want the very next thought to be like, "I need to sign up for Aligner Launchpad for the
Hmm.
program." That's the intention with it because I feel like yeah, it's an amazing procedure. It's a just a part of ortho that has been withheld from general dentists for centuries. Patients want it, patients need it, and it needs to be in every general dentist toolkit for us to be able to have that freedom, right? That time, money, and fulfillment. Just the three pillars that every dentist needs. So yeah,
Hmm.
that's my intention with it.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I love this conversation. I can talk hours about this.
Thanks, man. Well, we're going to Philly, right? We're going to see each
Yeah, yeah.
other.
I'll see you there. I think I'm gonna get there on Friday.
Okay. I'm getting there Thursday night, but I'll be
Nice.
there, and then I'm leaving Sunday morning. So we'll
Nice.
we'll
Okay.
definitely
Yeah,
have a
I'm
couple
the same.
days.
I'm gonna leave Sunday as well. Yeah.
Sweet, man.
I have a drive. You got a flight, so yeah, you should go the entire time. I couldn't take off the Thursday
Well,
as
I'm
well.
leaving Sunday morning before it, so I'm missing Sunday's events. But
Yeah,
I'll be there for
I
Friday,
usually
Saturday.
I went to his last one and I stayed a little for Sunday and then I drove back. Got it. Beat that
Perfect.
New York traffic.
Oh yeah. Oh
All
yeah.
right.
Awesome, Dan.
Well, I'll see you
Appreciate it.
soon. Of
Thanks for having me.
course.